Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of DABCC TV. I'm very excited about this episode because we're going to talk about, or we're going to show you one of my favorite types of technologies, client-side hypervisors or client virtualization. And I'm really excited about this technology. As you might know, if you've ever listened to any of my podcasts I've done with Virtual Computer or Zen Client, or just listen to me in general, I usually go off about client virtualization. And I am really excited about this one because we have today we have Virtual Computer, and actually we have a gentleman named Doug Lane, who's one of the gurus over at Virtual Computer, and they make client-side hypervisors. So we're not going to talk about it. We're going to show it to you. And this is cool stuff because, you know what, a client hypervisor is cool. You know, just the fact of a virtualization running at the bare metal level on a client, on a laptop or a desktop is cool. But the management is where the power comes in, right? That's the secret sauce. That's what separates the men from the boys. And Virtual Computer has some neat management. So we're going to show that off to you. We're going to show you the client hypervisor, and we're going to do that with Doug Lane here from Virtual Computer. So with no further ado, let's just dive into this podcast. So, Doug, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having us on the show.
It's no joke that I always get very excited about this, is it?
Oh, yeah. I always see you on Twitter, you know, kind of professing your love for client hypervisors, which always makes us feel good here.
Yeah, exactly. I do. Every now and then I just have to scream it. I love client virtualization. And people are like, VDI? No. There's a big difference between VDI and client virtualization. Let me educate you. So definitely, guys, if you're out there listening and you want to learn more about the Virtual Computer guys and what they do and just client virtualization in general, definitely jump over to DABCC Radio. And we've recently posted a podcast with these guys, and that'll go into a lot more verbal description, right, and verbal detail, where today Doug is going to show it off. So let's just dive into it. Doug, as always, I want to ask you just a couple quick questions. First question is, who are you and what do you do over at Virtual Computer?
Sure. My name is Doug Lane. I'm the Senior Director of Product Marketing here at Virtual Computer, and I've been with the company since day one, so it's been an interesting journey kind of seeing this go from the whiteboard all the way into what is a very mature product at this point, and primarily focused on both product strategy and helping drive the roadmap for the product, as well as going out and engaging with customers and other folks to kind of figure out what they think and how we can make it work in their environment.
Absolutely. That is cool. Day one. Now that's cool. So I bet there's a lot of, I bet we should have a podcast about that. What's the experience like? You know?
Yeah, I'd done other startups before, but it was really, this is the first time I had been involved literally from, the kitchen table days. So that was a pretty cool experience.
That is very cool. Yeah. Someday I'm going to bug you to just talk about it. Forget about Virtual Computer itself, just the experience behind it. So,
right.
So that being said, Virtual Computer, who are you guys? What do you do? What's the purpose?
So we've been around since late 2007, and our focus really from day one has been to look at the desktop virtualization space. And when you do that, you kind of see a lot of potential and a lot of opportunity for improved efficiency, improved security, and improved even end user experience. But you also see a lot of challenges around the fact that there are a lot of mobile users out there for whom traditional server-based VDI products don't work. There have been some user experience challenges along the way with VDI as well, which I think have gotten less and less as time goes on, but still are a number of cases where having a local PC in front of you makes a lot of sense. So what we did was we kind of looked at this with a clean slate and said, we're not in the server virtualization business. We don't have kind of existing technology to repurpose. If we were looking purely at desktops, how would we do it? And what we came up with was this idea for NxTop, which is a combination of a centralized management console, not unlike what you might see with a VDI product, but rather than running the end user sessions in the data center as you do with VDI, we built this bare metal client-side hypervisor technology that really works in concert with the management console. So you can create, update, maintain the desktops on the server, but the user sessions run locally on the PC in front of them. They can take it offline, get on an airplane, do whatever they need to do. But then at the end of the day, when the IT person needs to update or maintain that desktop, they can still do it on a one-to-many basis from that centralized console. So that's really what we're all about. It's kind of trying to deliver the same benefits as VDI and some new ones, but do it in a way where you don't have to necessarily build out a large data center footprint, and you can also continue to support mobile users by using that local PC processing power.
You bet. You bet. I'm not going to go into this because I just get on such a soapbox, but I just absolutely love client virtualization, just because at the end of the day, I want to have control. I want to have a laptop. I want to take it with me. I want to work on a plane. I want to work on a car. I want to work whenever I want to work. I don't want to be limited by my bandwidth or my, proximity bandwidth or the server's capacity or someone else, or I want to be able to install my own stuff. I want everything. And client virtualization allows that, but yet allows central control. And that's one of the things you're going to show off today is your centralized control management console. So really excited about seeing that and showing that off to everybody. So with no further ado, let's just dive directly into this. Sound good, Doug?
Sure, that sounds great.
So I'll basically just turn this over to you and I'll shut up.
Okay, we'll see about that. Yeah, exactly. So what you see here right now is our NxTop Center console. So as I mentioned, there are two aspects of the product. There's the NxTop Center management console, which is really only ever seen by the IT folks who are responsible for desktop management. And then we have NxTop Engine, which is the client-side hypervisor. So I'm going to start off going through some NxTop Center capabilities, but I do also have a little webcam here that I can pull over that's trained on my PC that's running NxTop Engine, is actually under management by this server. So if you're interested in the hypervisor side, which a lot of people are, I will not neglect that. But in effect, what we've done here, as I said, is built this console where you can centrally create, update, maintain, and deploy these virtual desktop images. So it's actually running on a Server 2008 platform. While we have our own hypervisor technology that we've built into NxTop Engine, on the server side, it's actually very tightly integrated with the Microsoft stack. So it's Server 2008, and these virtual desktops that we're creating here are actually being created using Hyper-V. So we have two-way compatibility between Hyper-V on the server side and our client-side hypervisor, which is not Hyper-V based, obviously. So in effect, you would set this up, you would tie it in with your Microsoft environment, so you can plug it in with like Active Directory, as you can see here, and in turn pull in all of your various Active Directory users and groups, and at that point be able to use them to provision these virtual desktops that you're building here on the console. You'll notice I have a couple one-off orange folks here, so you don't have to use Active Directory. It's kind of the norm. But we also do have a local user database that you can use to create one-off users and groups should you so desire. So at that point, you've kind of got all of your different users and groups in here, and you would, in parallel, be installing the NxTop Engine software on your different PCs. So if I go to my PC here, you can see it's a standard HP 6730 in my case, and effectively, you install that software. You can install it either in a manner that just wipes the PC, or you can also do a dual boot install mode, where you can boot native or boot the hypervisor. In either case, at that point, that PC becomes registered to me as a user. I just log in with my regular AD credentials, and at that point, any number of desktops that may be assigned to me will actually be there and available to me on my local PC. So if you look at my AD profile here, you see I have a corporate Windows 7, I've got a custom Windows 7, and then I've also got a corporate XP assigned to me. And as you might imagine, that corresponds to what you see over on my PC, where I do have a couple Windows 7, both of which are running, and then I've also got this XP that's kind of sitting here ready to start up if I choose to. So that's kind of how that works, and it's actually quite easy to provision new desktops to a user. So if I, for example, wanted to swap out my XP and replace it with say a Linux image, I can simply click a button there, and what it's going to do is it'll, after some period of time, check in with the management console, and once it does that, it will actually swap out the desktops as I specified. So if I drag this back over, you'll see it actually popped up a little message telling me it had made the change. And now instead of 2 Win 7 and 1 XP, I have 2 Win 7 and a little Linux penguin telling me that it's downloading, and 7 minutes from now, I'll have that desktop available to me. So if you think about this in the context of somebody rolling out a new OS like Windows 7, it's dramatically simpler because you just go in here, click a button, and the thing just shows up. So if you contrast that with how things have worked in the past, it's quite a big advance. And you can also just leave the legacy OS there temporarily as well. So if you have application compatibility issues or what have you, you can run XP side by side with it, or you can run, personal and corporate side by side, whatever the case may be. And because this is a bare metal hypervisor, you also have the assurance that these environments are all fully isolated from each other. So from there, I've got my desktops, and from an IT person's perspective, they have the periodic need to patch these desktops. And in addition to the ease of deployment, patching is an area where we focused quite a bit of effort. So in here, you can create these master images either by importing them, by building them from scratch using like an ISO image that you've uploaded here to our little library. One way or the other, you have these here, you build them, you patch them, and you deploy them. And then the first time it becomes deployed to me, as you saw with my Linux example, it needs to download the whole virtual machine. But any subsequent patches that are performed to the OS are actually just sent down as delta synchronization. So we do a block level synchronization of any changes that occurred as a result of that patch. So if I booted this up, patched it, and then shut it down, I could then go in and have some options for publishing it out either to a subset of my users, to all of my users, or even just creating a snapshot if I'm planning to come back and make more changes later. So this is a pretty big change from the way things are done today, because in effect it takes all of the patching out of Windows. So if you were in the business in the past of installing patches, tens of thousands of times on each PC, and some percentage of those times it doesn't work for you or is otherwise unsuccessful. In this case, you're doing it once in this controlled environment. The patch is always going to be proven successful before it even comes close to hitting a user PC. And then when it does come out to being delivered to the user PC, it all just happens in the background. So I could be running my old version of a particular desktop, and the new version just is built in the background. When I reboot, I have my fully updated image, but all of my user data is actually preserved in layers on top of that. So it's kind of taking all that patching and putting it into the background for the user, which is, it's nice for IT because it's fail-safe and all happens in a very controlled and fail-safe way. But from a user standpoint, there are a lot of benefits to that approach as well. So aside from the patching, which is really where a lot of the time savings come from, we have a variety of other different capabilities from a management standpoint, like the ability to apply policies around expiration, the ability to filter USB devices, including by class if you choose to. Just as we can send downstream updates for patches, we can do the same thing on the user layers, where you could set a policy that would back up the user data on a periodic basis that you specify. And then there's also a whole bunch of security capabilities built in, including full disk encryption in the client hypervisor, as well as things like the ability to remotely wipe a PC if you choose to, or the ability to actually lock out a PC by policy, where you might set it to check in with the server periodically, but if it doesn't check in a prescribed time period, it kind of goes off the grid, you can lock it out based on this policy. And then there's a whole bunch of other stuff in here. For example, you can throttle bandwidth between the client and the server so you don't eat up your link, and a whole host of other really powerful management functions. So that's kind of a brief glimpse, but there's a lot to this that I could literally go on for an hour or so demonstrating. As we jump over to the client, the first thing that's fairly obvious here is that you can actually run more than one OS at the same time. So if I were to hop up here, I can actually hotkey between my two running virtual desktops. And whether or not you use this is really going to depend on the use case of the particular user. If it's a less sophisticated user, they might just press power, it boots the hypervisor, and it boots their virtual machine automatically. Or for a power user, they actually would potentially have more than one assigned to them, run them at the same time, and even have some neat tricks like the ability to come in here and tweak how much memory is being allocated to the different virtual machines and what have you. So I could, pop in here, find my appropriate NxTops that are available to me, as well as do things, as I said, like, come in and tweak how my memory is being spread across these different virtual machines. And apologize if this doesn't show up that well on the video. I'm kind of doing a webcam type of view on this. Aside from that, some of the other things you can do here, we've actually gone through and replicated a lot of the key things that a PC does in the hypervisor. So, for example, power management, the ability to set power profiles, the ability to set hotkeys and certain behaviors as different types of lid closures and things like that occur. All that's configurable right here in the client hypervisor. And then finally, we've got actually a pretty neat feature that we're adding in our next release that we've already kind of showed it a little bit in different events and things like that. So I'll show it to the viewers here as well. But primarily our system has been designed to support the management of Windows-based virtual desktops. However, we also see great potential to use this platform as a foundation for other types of computing models, whether it's accessing cloud-based services, accessing XenApp or terminal services based applications, or even having a hybrid environment where you're maybe running local desktops as well as VDI sessions on the same machine. So we've actually added something that we call NxTop Connect, which is a very handy environment where you can access different applications right from the hypervisor level. So for one example here, I'll pop up my Google Chrome browser right here from the hypervisor. This would be, again, accessible outside of Windows. So if you wanted to isolate web access to a sensitive business application that's over the web, or if you just wanted as a convenience feature for the users to make a quick boot web browser available to them, that can be done here through this new NxTop Connect extension that we've added to NxTop Engine. You'll see in addition to doing something like a web browser, you can also do things like a remote access client. So I've kind of popped up the terminal server client, but this could be a XenApp HDX client. It could be a Quest client, whatever the case may be. So if you think about, kind of the marriage between client-side virtualization and VDI, we're not necessarily getting religious about it. We think client-side is going to be important, but we also think there's going to be a role for VDI and server-based application publishing going forward. So we're trying to kind of extend the olive branch and provide ways to plug into that as well. So, really what we're trying to do with this platform is build something that can deliver the benefits of desktop virtualization from a management standpoint to these loosely connected laptop devices. At the same time, we do think it's something bigger where we could, in effect, have NxTop Engine serve as a single platform that could support both these loosely connected devices as well as provide kind of a thin client alternative when you're trying to have a stationary user access server-based resources. So that's kind of a quick demo. I'll try to keep it short just because in the interest of the format here. But, as you can see, there's a whole lot that's gone into this, both in terms of recreating the PC experience on top of a client hypervisor, as well as building a whole bunch of very powerful management features on top of it through this NxTop Center console we've developed.
Thank you, Doug. That's very impressive stuff. And again, guys, if you want to learn more, definitely go back to refer to the podcast, the audio podcast we did, because we'll really dive into a slew of questions that I have, really, diving deep into the technology. But Doug, I do want to ask a couple questions for you or to you. And one is requirements. I know, a lot of people say, well, with client virtualization, client-side hypervisors, it really depends upon the type of hardware you're using and blah, 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 blah. What kind of client requirements do you guys have?
So this is actually an area that we feel we've really distinguished ourselves with this product because we have chosen to go a route where we're supporting both kind of the latest and greatest systems that are kind of decked out with Intel vPro, and we are definitely looking to take advantage of those capabilities wherever possible. But we've also made our product backwards compatible with a lot of older PCs that are still very common in a lot of enterprise environments. So the base level requirement we have is to have a processor that has VTX, so the Intel virtualization extension, the first generation VTX, which has been out for several years at this point. We can also run on the newer vPro systems that have the VTD functionality as well. But, it's a pretty powerful, kind of statement to be able to support some of these older platforms because a lot of times we go into environments and even if they are buying newer PCs, they do have a large installed base of existing PCs. And sometimes even just making a PC available to test the hypervisor on is a challenge if they have to go out and buy a new one. So it's something that served us quite well.
Absolutely.
From a, additional resource standpoint, primarily we're looking for at least 2 gigabytes of RAM in the system, minimum of 80 gigabytes of hard drive space. And then from a component basis, we pretty much have all of the minor, kind of disk and networking components covered. In our current shipping version of the product, we have support for a variety of Intel and NVIDIA graphics chip technologies. And we have actually a pretty big advance coming in our next release, which will actually be going to beta in a few weeks, where we're adding support for AMD processors as well as ATI graphics. So at that point in time, once that release hits, we'll have the lion's share of business class PCs that have been out for the last 4 years or so covered with our technology.
Well, very good, very good. And then again, guys, go to the podcast and we talk more about that subject. Also, with these videos, it's always neat. You know, everyone comes in, everything's all set up and it looks great. What did it take to get to the point where you were able to demo this today? What does it take to install?
Sure. So to set this up, and it's probably worth pointing out that you can actually download the whole thing for free if you want to give it a try. So it's not an eval, it's literally a free 5-user version of the full software package. And effectively what you can do is go to our website, register for an account, download 2 things. One, a Windows installer that will be to set up NxTop Center, and then the second being an ISO image that you can burn to a CD to install NxTop Engine, the client hypervisor technology. In effect, what you would do is set up a Server 2008 system, turn on the Hyper-V role, run our installer. It will ask you to plug in some parameters, passwords, things like that. And that will go ahead and set up all of our NxTop Center applications on that particular server, at which point you're pretty much ready to go. If you wanted to tie it in with AD, there's some screens to walk through to do that. And then from there, you would import either existing VHD virtual machines or your ISO images, build some virtual machines on the server side. And then on the client side, just boot your PC off of this CD. And at that point, you can either, as I said, boot it and have it just wipe the whole PC. Or if you have an existing OS you want to preserve, you can shrink that existing OS into a smaller partition. Our installer will detect that and install itself into the free space. And then from there, you just have to plug in the user ID and the host name of the server that you've set up, and you're off to the races. So I wouldn't say it's trivial. There is a Windows server set up to get up and running, but it's definitely something you can do in a couple hours.
You bet. And you don't even need to set up the NxTop management console, do you? They can test the client hypervisor just by installing it on the client hardware, the laptop, or does it require the NxTop Center?
So the release that is up there today that you can download from the website does require both the server and the client to work, although that's been a frequent request. So we've actually added that capability into this next release that's coming shortly. So in the matter of a few weeks or so, you should be able to just download the client, install that, and then create virtual machines locally using a Windows CD right in the local machine. So we built it initially, focused on corporate environments, but because there has been so much interest in the client hypervisor, we've gone ahead and added that feature.
Very cool, very cool. And I heard you say, and I know this, I guess, but let's say it again. This is free for people up to 5 users.
That's right. So you can download the whole thing, and we ultimately, we're a small company, so we're out there in a desktop virtualization space that's dominated by some pretty large companies. So our advantage is that we're ahead of everyone, and we've got a pretty mature and feature-rich product that we think is going to show and compare very well to other options out there in the marketplace. So we wanted to just get this thing out there in front of as many people as possible, and we're trying to do that in a way that's as easy as possible.
Very cool, very cool. And that was going to be my last question before we call this an episode, and that is, Citrix has Zen Client. I don't even know if VMware ever will have anything, but someday they might have something. And of course, you have desktop virtualization. How do you compete with these guys? Why would should somebody look at the NxTop virtual computer solution versus, let's say, Zen Desktop or Zen Client? Excuse me.
Right. I think they're definitely doing some good work over at Citrix with Zen Client, and I would say we've got a number of advantages in terms of kind of the maturity of the product. So again, we've been at this 100% focus of our company since late 2007. So I would say in general we're a fair bit further along in areas like performance and stability and support for various USB peripherals and things like that. There are some things we do differently architecturally as well, and that's what gives us the advantages from the standpoint of hardware compatibility. They're generally going to look for you to run on a kind of brand new system with the latest and greatest components. We can run on those as well as, potentially some older PCs that you have around in your organization, so you can more immediately get to a total cost of ownership gain if you can retrofit your existing PCs as well. And then, I would say, on the management side, they have, kind of obviously have a lot of pieces with Zen Desktop where they can tie Zen Client into a broader management story. But so far, what they put out there with the synchronization back to the appliance and that type of thing is, useful, but it doesn't, kind of offer the array of different management features that we have in NxTop Center. So I think, certainly they're someone to be taken seriously, and I think they'll be successful ultimately with Zen Client. But I think, our biggest advantage is that, we're further ahead, and now it's incumbent upon us to, when they get to where we are now, we need to be another 5 steps ahead in other areas. So that's really kind of what we think about every day.
You bet. And I know a lot of people downloaded Zen Client. So if you're out there listening to this or watching this and you say, well, I downloaded Zen Client, but it did not work for me because I do not have a machine with vPro and an ATI graphics card, definitely check out Virtual Computer, check out NxTop, and check out NxTop in general, because just to look at the two side by side, it's amazing. The differences, these guys have really done a great job, a great job. Like Doug said, they're ahead at this point. So I hope, I love the competition. You guys are going to move each, Citrix is going to make you guys grow, and you're going to force Citrix to really ante up and do this stuff pretty quick. So, Doug, on that note, I like to keep these things right around 30 minutes, not over 30 minutes, and we're right at about 26 minutes. So let's go ahead and call this a episode. And but before we do that, if someone wants to learn more, what do they need to do?
All they need to do is just go to our website at www.virtualcomputer.com, and then right on the homepage, they'll see a nice big free download button on there that they can press to get immediate access to the software, or they can certainly take the time to go and learn a little bit more about the product as well.
Oh, perfect.
Who wants to do that? Let's just download it and jump in, right?
Yeah, exactly. Come on. Anyone watching this, we're probably engineers We're just going to download it right away, and it's awesome. I love it. Client virtualization. I think I'm going to make up t-shirts. So if you guys haven't already do it, I'm going to have, the I love New York. It's just going to say, I heart client virtualization. Or client-side hypervisors. That's what the stickers you need, Doug. Is I love client client hypervisors.
We'll get on that. Maybe we'll try to pull that together for VMworld.
Yeah, you should. I'll wear one.
All right. Good deal.
Okay. You take care. Thank you so much for your time today. And of course, as always, I want to thank each and every one for listening and watching this DABCC TV episode. And as always, definitely check out www.dabcc.com for the latest and greatest in virtualization news support resources. Also, if you're an iPhone user, definitely go out to the iPhone App Store and search DABCC or Citrix or VMware or virtualization, and you'll come upon the DABCC iPhone app, and go ahead and download that. It's 100% free, and I hope you will, and I think you will enjoy it, and it'll definitely keep you up to speed on all the latest and greatest in this space we call virtualization. So again, thank you so much for your time today, Doug. Thank you so much for your time for everyone watching this, and until